Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, and this is a new video about my favorite subject around the world, which is probably European migration. If you're familiar with my videos, this time I decided to give you a full objective data analysis about European migration, and the topic for this video is the best countries to migrate in terms of obtaining a work permit. In the last year, I was trying to get a work permit, which means that I was trying to get a job in any of the EU countries, but more specifically in the Nordic countries because I speak Swedish and I was a student there. And it was not very feasible, that's my personal experience. And then I decided to go for some other countries around the area, such as Germany, Netherlands, and then I even tried with some other countries such as Bulgaria, or Hungary, or even Malta. But then I realized the subject is quite complex, and I wanted to offer as much value now to my audience if there are a couple hundred people watching this video. So I actually put a two-component analysis, and I did a sort of a research, and then my findings were quite interesting. So I like to share my findings with you. So first things first, to start with, I had two components for this very research. The first is the unemployment rates for the respective European countries, and the second was the minimum required salary to qualify for a work permit. So let me explain the first. My hypothesis about unemployment rates was that if the unemployment rate in a country is quite high. For example, let's take on the case for Sweden. So according to Eurostat, back in 2022, the unemployment rate in Sweden was 7%, which is rank number 24 out of 38 countries, some European countries, including Turkey in this list. It means that, what does it mean? It's very important. If the unemployment rate is quite high in your country, it means that to eradicate the unemployment, you need to grow new businesses and expand the economy. And by that fact alone, the first people waiting in the queue to find a job would be your own nationals. Then the second tier to find a job would be second group of privileged people, let's say the EU citizens. For example, there are lots of Swedes, for my own experience, there's lots of Swedes waiting to get a job right now in Sweden. First, they're gonna find a job when they start eradicating the unemployment rates, which infers the idea that they will grow the economy and they will bring new jobs in the country. First group of people who will find jobs will be Swedes, and the second group would be permanent residence holders, because they're by law, they're equal to Swedish people. And then the third tier would be the European citizens, let's say Italians, Polish people, German people, whatsoever. And the fourth tier, which is the least privileged, would be my case of people which are non-EU citizens. So that's my hypothesis. The less the unemployment rate, the higher your chances to find a job in that very country as a non-European citizen. So that was my first component of my research. The second component is there is, for most of the countries, almost all, there is another threshold to qualify for a work permit. So that's how the global politics work, right? So for example, you have a country, let's take Luxembourg. Despite having a very low unemployment rate at 4.3%, you might have the idea that it might be very easy to find a job in Luxembourg, right? Because they have relatively very least amount of unemployment rate, actually ranked in the first tier in terms of unemployment. So they have 4.3%, and they're ranked number 12 in the EU by 2022. But just the first component of unemployment rate might be very falsifying. That's what I really try not to present my data with. So I added the second component, which is the minimum required salary. For example, when we look at the Luxembourg's case, the minimum required salary from your job to get a work permit is 7,065 euros per month. Okay, you might say it's very feasible salary maybe in Luxembourg, but in this video I discuss the idea that there are better countries and easier countries for which you can seek a work permit slash a job. So those were my two components. The first is the unemployment rate and the second is the minimum required salary. And when we start digging into the video, you will see some countries are definitely playing a better role in offering better chances for qualifying for a work permit. I have the data for unemployment rates for 38 countries, and I did this statistical analysis. So the first fact is that in those 38 countries, including Balkans and Turkey, the average unemployment rate is 6.87%. So I grouped those countries into two groups, which is unemployment rates higher than 6.87 and the unemployment rate lower than 6.87. So I have now a group of countries falling under the category of having a good unemployment rate, which infers that the unemployment rate is definitely below 6.87. By the way, just a fun fact, Sweden and Finland and France and Italy are not among that group of countries which falls below the 6.87 unemployment rate. So now I have a lower group of countries, probably among which you wouldn't like to seek a work permit because they're very full of people unemployed there. So probably on the waiting list, they're trying to find a job, and the local companies are trying to hire them first, their own citizens. That's what I'm saying. That's my hypothesis. And then there is a top ranked countries, 23 countries that I analyzed, falling under the category which has a lower unemployment rate, which is below the average of the Euro area, those 38 countries. So to dig even deeper, so those 23 countries, I rank them among each other. And then I put the average, I take the average of those good countries with a low unemployment rate, and the average unemployment for those 23 countries was 4.3%. It's very important, bear this in mind. So 4.3% is the average unemployment rate among those good countries with a low unemployment. So the findings are the first 12 countries which has below average unemployment rate among those below average unemployment rate of 38 countries. So I have a green list of 12 countries falling behind the category of very low unemployment rate. So without further ado, those countries are Czechia, Poland, Norway, Malta, Germany, Hungary, Netherlands, UK, Switzerland, Ireland, Slovenia, and Luxembourg. So the first analysis of just looking at the unemployment rate, those would be my tier 1 countries. That's how I group them. When we go to my tier 1 countries, the unemployment rates vary from 2.3 till 4.3. So the lowest unemployment rate would be in Czechia, and the highest would be in Luxembourg. But still bear in mind that those are the tier 1 countries among which I discuss that your chances are the highest to find a job because they have the lowest unemployment rate, which infers there are actually more jobs than their own population can fill for, and now they're in search for importing people from other countries, including the non-EU countries. So your chances might be higher for those countries. So now the second components come into place to play a role. Because despite Czechia would appear the first country, the first ranked country with the 2.3 unemployment rate, the minimum required salary for non-EU citizens to qualify for a work permit is 2,400, which is not very low, but how would we rank with other corresponding countries? So I ranked them among each other, those 12 countries. Then the findings are quite interesting because despite not having the lowest unemployment rate, when we look at the situation in terms of minimum required salary, Hungary appears to be number one with only 540 euros. So it means Hungary is the top 12 countries in the euro area with a very low unemployment rate, with the least amount of minimum required salary to qualify for a work permit. So that being said, if you get a job offer from Hungary, you only need 540 euros in your salary, as your salary, to get a work permit, to get into the EU zone as a work permit holder. Then the findings are very interesting again. With only 2.9 unemployment rate percentage, Norway is number 2 with requiring only 1,861 euros as a minimum salary. So Hungary number 1, Norway number 2, and then there comes Czechia. That's why I included the second component, which was the minimum salary, because if you only look at the unemployment rate, Czechia was number 1, but now it falls behind Hungary and Norway, and now Czechia is number 3 with 2,400 euros as a minimum required salary. Then there comes Malta with 2,500 euros as minimum required salary. Then there comes Ireland, number 5th, and there comes UK, number 6th, and then comes Netherlands. By the way, I forget to include Ireland minimum required salaries 2,500, UK 2,542 euros, and Netherlands there is a slight jump in my list. Netherlands, the minimum required salary is 3,484. So in order to qualify for a work permit in Netherlands, you need to have offered a salary of 3,484 euros, despite Netherlands being one of the lowest unemployment rate, which was in 3.6%. So just following that logic, I like to jump into the second category. So in the second tier of countries, my number 1 is Croatia. Yes, it's kind of interesting. They only have an unemployment rate of 6.4%, and minimum required salary to get a work permit is 700 euros. And then there's Portugal with 822 euros, and then there's Bulgaria. Bulgaria is actually one of my hot takes, because their unemployment is only 4.6 and the minimum required salary is only 860. So at the end of this tier list and the countries and everything, I will bring about my hot takes, because despite this 2-component analysis gives you some sort of understanding of your capabilities of getting a work permit, I don't think it's solely enough, and I don't think that can be this much of simplified in terms of this analysis. For example, when we go forward, when I rank those countries by the minimum required salaries, tier 2 countries, which means still have a relatively low unemployment rate, then I rank them by their minimum required salary. So here the list, it's Croatia, Portugal, Bulgaria, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Belgium, Denmark, Austria, Romania, and Slovakia. So those were my tier 2. Then the tier 2 would be tier 3 would be those countries probably you don't have a good chance of getting a work permit. So just hear them out. Those tier 3 countries are Greece, France, Italy, Sweden, Spain, Finland, Cyprus, Serbia, Turkey, Ukraine, Albania, Macedonia, Montenegro, Bosnia, and Kosovo. There are many things to be said about those countries, but the aim of this study is to qualify those countries, including 2-component analysis, to find in which countries your chances are the highest. So I'm skipping tier 3. You heard those countries. Those countries have relatively very high unemployment rate, and I wouldn't recommend you to seek a work permit on those countries. It's not as simple as this to seek a work permit in one of those countries. For example, one of my hot takes, Croatia and Bulgaria, this actually falls in the second tier category, but how feasible is it to find a job there? So that's what I'm discussing also. Because the two component analysis might not be enough to give you the comprehensive idea about how feasible it is to find a job. So what I discuss is it also plays a role if you're a non-EU citizen to seek for jobs in which you can speak English and in which you seek for an international environment. For example, Bulgaria requires only 680 euros for a minimum salary. From my personal experience and my data that I cannot back it up right now, there are not many English speaking jobs in Bulgaria. Some might say yes, there are, but still, when you include other components like a development index and how many percent of the population speaks English, the bureaucracy and everything, Bulgaria wouldn't be my hot take. The similar way, Croatia wouldn't be my hot take. For example, in the tier 2 list, I still have Portugal, ranked number 2, but I might say I like to include a component of the trending of new jobs opening and the country falling behind of its previous curve. For example, Sweden was a country in which you can migrate to very easily. That was my hearings throughout the history. But now if you look at the trend line of Sweden, it's actually falling. Similar way, Portugal is falling now. They're not giving citizenships as easy as they did in the past. So that's where my hot takes play a role. So I have a couple countries. First of which is Hungary. I heard many good things about Hungary, which is the tech industry and the innovative stuff is actually moving towards Hungary, so they're really trying to import some people. I would say just 540 euros as a minimum salary. Hungary might be a good country to try and take a shot on. And then Norway is a very hot take. Most of the people would argue Norway and Malta would be a hot take, but I wouldn't argue so, because Malta was always that country which we believed that, okay, it's very easy to go to Malta, that's an island, that's an expat rich country whatsoever. In fact, it is so, but when we look at the historical trend line, I personally think Malta is falling down now because of the European crisis now with inflation and everything. So the trending countries, that's what I was talking about. I would say Hungary, Norway, then antithesis would be Ireland. Still, it's number 6 on my list, but Ireland is actually falling behind. I would say UK is falling behind. Netherlands, despite being a very expensive country in terms of minimum required salary, I would say your chances are higher in Netherlands than many of the countries here, because Netherlands is a very English speaking country and the economy is huge compared to their population. If I'm not mistaken, they have a population of like 15 million, 14, 15, something around that. I'm not correct about this from tip of my mind, but yeah, your chances are high in Netherlands. And then my biggest discussing point is Germany, with a minimum salary of actually 4,866. Then they semi-qualify that with the jobs in scarcity, which might qualify for IT jobs and the tech industry and whatsoever. They actually have a lower minimum required salary of 3,796. But that being said, Germany actually recently announced that they will be importing quite a couple of millions of people by the end of 2030. So Germany, the stonks are high. You know what I'm saying? Like, the stonks are going high in Germany. Actually, I personally started learning German. In many of my job applications, I get many good referrals from German companies, The only missing point was that they always asked me if I could speak German, because that's the operating language in the country. So yeah, here what I'm saying, Germany is definitely trending up. And then we come to my tier 2 countries. I'm definitely saying Portugal is trending down. That's my personal opinion. My personal opinion is Estonia, number 6 in my tier 2 countries, with only 1,448 euros of minimum salary to qualify for a work permit. I think Estonia is trending up. I really like to hear your opinion in the comments about that. And then there it comes, my favorite, personal favorite, which is Denmark. Despite appearing a very expensive minimum salary as 4,195, there is local politics playing a role in the case of Denmark, because as far as I know, Denmark actually lowered the minimum required salary to qualify for a work permit, like for 700-800 euros or something. Despite it still appears 4,195, I talked with my friends there, and they would say that a junior position, like entry-level position, still qualifies for this amount of salary. So I would put Denmark relatively higher in my list, because to me it appears that it's very feasible to have offered this amount of salary. And then Denmark has only 4.6 unemployment rate, which puts Denmark in definitely top 3 in my hot take list. So also Austria, the minimum salary is 5,400. It's relatively higher, but still including the other components which I didn't take into account when I do my data analysis. But in Austria there are many high-tech jobs, and there's a proportion of, let's put it that way, Austria is a very developed country. So if a country is very developed in terms of life satisfaction, economy, whatsoever, that's a topic for another video. But regardless of the salary requirements, your chances are always good to qualify for a work permit. So yeah, let's wrap it up real quick. My hot takes were Hungary, Norway, Netherlands, Germany. Netherlands, it's a bit tricky though. Then we come to tier 2, and there is Estonia and Denmark and Austria. Those would be pretty much my analysis, in which I tried to narrate more than 2 components. Despite 2 components will be still a relatively a good semi-research for these purposes. So I really wonder about your opinions, because let's wrap the video here and talk just a minute about my personal experience. In the last 11 months, ever since I left Sweden last July, I applied to more than 1,000 jobs probably. 5 of the job applications that I interview with, I've been given the excuse that my job application is denied for the sole reason that they don't provide a work permit. Like 5 of them in the last 10 months, you know. So it's quite a high number, so I got fed up with it. I'm really fed up with qualifying, going to an interview, and the second interview, and after the second interview they say, yeah, we really like you, you really seem very brilliant person, but for this occasion we don't provide work permits. Okay, then that's why I wanted to shoot this video, because I know that many of my friends, from my personal experience, many of my friends in similar position trying to migrate to Europe, especially Turkish citizens as of today, because the life is full of suffering here in this country, but it's not very feasible to migrate to Europe nowadays, because there, I argue, ever since the Russian war had started, the Europe was facing a minor crisis of inflation. So what does it mean? Because in the first minutes of this video, I argued my first component, which is unemployment. So the higher the unemployment, the less your chance to find a job there. Similar way, When there comes an inflation, Europe is not expanding. It's trying to hold itself on a similar place, or it's actually shrinking. The economies are shrinking, right? So in that case, if there's a war coming with inflation, the economy is not booming, the new jobs are not being created, so actually they're not hiring. So my personal experience is that to find a job and migrate to Europe, especially in the EU, is harder than ever before. I've been to around 25 countries in Europe so far, and my honest opinion is that I never seen it this difficult to go to Europe and migrate there, because the economy is definitely not booming, and that will be my personal experience slash my personal thoughts. And that being said, that brings me to the end of this video. And please let me know what you think about this video and all these statistics and data analysis and whatsoever about my components and everything. I tried to make it look like a bit more of formal research, because as I told you, I'm sort of fed up just discussing my excuses and how angry I am whatsoever about the European Union and everything. Now it's time to speak about data. If you are wondering about the sources of my data, where it came from, the unemployment percentage actually came from Eurostat. I'll be sharing the link below in this video. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel, because I'm really thinking about publishing a video every week. And comment below what would you like to see as my next video. Thank you.